Oh, what's good, G-Life? It's your boy MC Shadow back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Don't forget to check out my second channel, Manage Society MOD. That's Manage Society MOD. It's pretty much where we go live and talk about, anything and everything. Now, what I wanted to discuss was something I was asked, right? I wasn't even going to, discuss the matter. But since a lot of people have been asking, now they asked me, what do I think about the whole situation that's happening on the YouTube Yarda, as it's called, right? The drama on YouTube with these Hispanic channels. Situation, occurring with Dubs, and an individual coming out and talking about his debriefing status and all that, right? Now, in my personal opinion, to me, it's irrelevant because it's the internet. You can't be gangster on the internet. Active status and all that other shit. It shouldn't be on the internet. It doesn't matter on the internet. All that shit is street talk. It's left for the street world and, for street individuals, not to be discussed online with a bunch of people who are not even gang related whatsoever, who shouldn't even be caring, worrying, or giving a fuck about these matters. You know what I mean? Because truly, in all true honesty, a majority of people that are watching are not gang related, don't have any gang ties, so why should they give a fuck about, if somebody's good or not good, or, active or inactive, or snitch or any of that, right? Because if they're gonna start living by those rules, they might as well go get jumped into a gang. Right? So none of that shit matters, and I'm assuming a majority of these people's subscribers are not gang related, so to their subscribers, none of that shit matters either way, right? Now, if they trick themselves into believing that actual street individuals are watching them, then they're foolish if they think that, right? I guarantee you a majority of their audience, if not all of their audience, is non-gang related people, right? Who are just curious. Now, overall, when people talk about, him now getting a bunch of hatred now, right? I think that has to do with before he was humble, right? Before he wouldn't get involved in drama. He would keep, all that negativity talk, he wouldn't even discuss that negativity talk. I used to be, subscriber to his channel, right? Before everything hit the fans, right? And he would never dive into none of those discussions or carry himself like that, right? Now it's different though. Now he is more cocky, he is more hypocritical, he is more arrogant. But that wasn't always his style. I get it that they say that we make videos about him and that we need to throw their names in our content in order for it to be relevant or to get views. But that's the reason why he's been getting a lot of hatred as of lately, because that's what he's been doing to a lot of channels, to the Wes Watsons and the No Jumpers and the Strength Cartel. They talk and insult all these people on Renegade Media as well, right? They insult these individuals, call them names, and before they didn't get down like that, right? Even if they dislike somebody or disagree with somebody, they wouldn't be now like, insulting them like how they do to, Big Boy and Renegade Media and Wes Watson, calling them, all kinds of names and calling them out of name, right? So, not only that, but individuals, him and the other individual he does his videos with, calling people snitches and referring to people as snitches, or these snitches, or these fools are straight snitches. But they themselves have told, like, you can't be a snitch and call somebody else a snitch, bro. Or you can't be mad because these people are in their opinion, leaking information to the CEOs or to the cops, saying that these fools are the feds, or they work with the feds, or they're helping the CDC. You know what I mean? When they have paperwork on themselves, like, you have snitched, like, you told, bro, like how are you gonna try to clown other people and say other people shouldn't tell when you yourself have told, though? That shit just doesn't make any sense, And like I said, and if the denial of people telling, when there's actually paperwork out there, right? There's actually, the work out there. It's just in itself, it's mind baffling, right? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you are already grown, if you don't care about that no more, if you're already older, or if you already have lived or moved past all that and you don't care about all that, then why do people, refer to calling people snitches? Then why do they still want to be considered in the same category as these individuals that put in work and stuff like that, right? Like, somebody, if they have already, denounce that life and stuff like that, then they had no problem admitting that they told and their actual real story, right? But if people are still hiding the fact that they told, is because they still want to be seen as gangsters and, you know, tough guys and G's, you know. And like I said, individuals that have moved past all of that are not calling people snitches and shit like that and worrying and dwelling on stuff like that. Then clearly they haven't moved on. Then clearly they still want to be seen as gangster. Then clearly they haven't learned anything. Because if not, there's no other reason for the behavior. You know, those who moved on don't, you know, want to be in those conversations or don't want to be discussing those conversations, you know. But if people are still dwelling on that, is because, you know, they still want to be in that mix. You know what I'm saying? And you can't say that you're not lying if you know you have told right, but you always keep that part hidden. You know what I mean? But then want to be calling out other people or insulting other people by saying that they have told or that they're snitches. You know, like if you told yourself, like, so does that mean you're law enforcement? You know, like all the stuff that you say about these other people. You know what I mean? Because these are the conversations that they have been talking about as of lately and diving into and what they've been calling other individuals. When it's like I said, then when people find out that you tell, then that's when everybody be like, what the fuck, you know? And then that's when you get all the hate, you know, because people are now seeing what people have been saying, you know, the hypocrisy of things, right? You know, and that's why everybody starts to now, you know, like look that way, right? And it's because, you know, individuals are displaying these behaviors. You know, it's not like people are just hating because they're jealous or envy and nothing like that. You know, you just because somebody disagrees with you or just because somebody comes and brings the facts, brings the truth out, right? You can't say that they're jealous and they're hating or they're envious. Hatred is when they make up stuff about you. If they calling you out a name, if they're making up lies about you. But if what they're simply doing is coming and telling the facts, telling the truth, you know, providing evidence, like coming with the facts, then that's not hatred, bro. You can't hate somebody by being honest. You can't hate somebody. You can't hate on somebody by speaking the truth. You can only hate on somebody by telling lies. So you can't come on here and say that people are hating and jealous and envy if all they're merely doing is just speaking on the actual truth, speaking on the facts that's out there. Now, when people be like, why should people care? Or what's it to them? Exactly. Then why is it so hard to, you know, admit that then? Because, you know, you're trying to give off this image, right? So it's like the same thing could be said, right? It's hypocrisy at its finest. But overall, that's just my opinion on the matter. No, and I will not be making no other video. You know, this is how we do, just one and done. You know, we don't keep beating the damn horse, you know what I mean? Because like I said, it's irrelevant to anybody out there. It shouldn't matter to anybody out there. And overall, that's just what it is, you know. The internet is meant for entertainment, not meant to be, you know, earning stripes on here and keeping gangsta and all of that. Like, you can't be tough on the internet, bro. You know what I mean? So just get over yourselves. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Leave in the comments and shout away up.